What we're really talking about is how can you make your fintech stand out next year? I think this is, for me, this is a topic that I could probably talk about all week, never mind all evening, because I think in such a crowded market, I mean, there's 1,000 shades of fintech these days. So it's a huge challenge for all of us to make sure that we can differentiate, position, connect with the audience. So that's what we're going to be discussing. We're going to do this as a bit of a quick fire round. So first of all, if I can just ask my panellists to introduce themselves. I'll start with Vanessa, please.
Sure, thank you. Thank you first of all for having us here and organising this. I'm losing my voice, so forgive me if you can't hear me. I will try and project as loud as I can. I'm Vanessa. I run brand and communications for Checkout.com. I've been with the company for over 3.5 years. I sort of joined the team to help build the brand function out and sort of grew the team from there. And most of my, for those of you who don't know, I should say Checkout.com is a digital first payment solutions provider. We're a global provider. We have footprint across 20 offices globally, and focused on B2B and enterprise. So I think I'll try and angle sort of my responses on that sort of enterprise and how you do things differently in enterprise. Historically, I've always come from the brand environment, always from the agency environment as well. So Checkout's been my first fintech experience. Deep in-house, right? I did do some work for PayPal previously when I was in the Bay Area, but it's been really exciting to apply all those learnings of so many years of working for growing startups into an in-house experience.
Interesting, thank you. Dave?
Hello, yes, I'm Dave. Welcome to the Airwallex office. I am the content and brand manager here at Airwallex. Before this, I headed up content and PR at Modular. I moved to Airwallex in March this year. I think where I'm different to these guys is that I apply a lot of brand and a lot of products. So I think that's what I'm going to be bringing to this panel.
Cool. I'm Leo, and funny thing is his last name is Beach and mine's Burger, so we've got a beach and a burger. I'm actually stepping in for someone who had to pull out last minute, Sophie Taylor. Sad she couldn't be with us, so it's big boots to fill. She's the lead product marketer at Revolut. I'm the product marketing manager at Sopra Banking, which is a large software banking provider for banks, basically.
Great, thank you. So what we're focusing on, obviously in the first session was really about, touched on how you stand out when you're leading up to fundraising or beyond that. So we're looking at a bit more holistically, but also at how brand and product marketing play their role in helping fintechs position themselves and to differentiate. So I guess the question is, where do we start? You know, as marketers, where on earth do you start when you come into a fintech or you're part of a startup, and you really need to help communicate that value? Where's your start point? Leo, I'm going to go to you first. Sorry.
No, it's fine. I mean, in terms of startup, I think we've all agreed we are all B2B, so all enterprise. I'm a bit of a fintech geek as well. I've been following the space for 8 years, so I can give a lot of B2C examples. But in terms of B2B, I'd say it's always with buyer personas. So we do a lot of research. Obviously, I'm a product marketer, so I will go to market. That's what we do, kind of design, and we bring products and we launch products into the market. So we start with, what is our story? I think that Romeo already touched on the kind of the story and the importance of the story. But equally, you have to have data to back that up. So really starting out with who are your buyer personas, what are you selling into the market? I mean, for me, it's a real niche product, so commercial financing. So it's very hard. There's a lot of golf playing as well there. So our sales guys go play golf a lot in the US.
Do you have a super charming founder as well?
We do. One of our heads of business is very charming, yeah, and he goes parties till 4 a.m. as well. So he goes all in. But yeah, no, charming and storytelling. But yeah, definitely with the data and the quality of the data for call. Really, what kind of personas are we talking to? Where do they sit within banks? And then how do we tell our story, our product story? So combining those two, and then we've got an awesome marketing team in Sopra Banking, and they help with the brand elements in there. But I would say you start with kind of buyer personas, product. Where does our product kind of, how do we position that in the market? How do we stand out with those kind of buyer personas? That's kind of where the starting point.
Okay, great, thanks, Dave.
I think you also have to look at competitors as well. So you have to understand your competitor landscape, understand what they're doing, have a little nosy every month, see what they're up to. Beyond that though, I'm speaking from Airwallex perspective, we're 1,400 people, we're quite a large company, quite well established, we've got a global marketing team. Here in EMEA we're a bit more of a startup setup, but you've got to be a bit more narrow, you've got to focus. And I think the word that I would associate with this is bravery. Like you've got to choose your niche, you've got to choose your personas.
Yes.
I can imagine a product marketer handing me reams of persona buyers, and
Just four. Just four. Focus. No, I agree with the focus.
That's good. You need to know your verticals, and then a content marketer will go, great. I can go in, place big bets on marketing tools that we want to do, and get a message out.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I love that you said focus. Focus is important, especially in a noisy world. We actually recently did a review, sort of starting all the way from research through to establishing our position, which had always been true to us, but I think articulating in a way that really resonated well with us and with our teams, our internal teams predominantly. And that all started with customer research, right? Like understanding the merchant, deeply understanding them and understanding why they buy. Not only like what they buy, system 2 thinking, but their system 1 sort of emotional benefits, so you can sort of tap into their heart. So understanding then who is that one sort of customer that you want to really lean into, focus on them. Many of us call it the aspirational customer, but it's really who you're fighting for, like the tribe that you're building for. And then flip of that is understand, okay, with all the things that they're looking for, what is uniquely true to what you're going to deliver to them that you want to, put a stake in the ground and really talk about it really consistently, and make sure that it's not just because there's a gap in the market, but actually you believe you can do it and it's authentic. And when your sales teams go out, they can talk about it and be really, really proud about their unique differentiator because they truly stand behind it.
I also think that quite often you fall into a trap of over-datering things. So you look at your demographic and you think, well, the same pain points are true across the demographic, but actually if you did quantitative research, you would find that actually they're very different pain points. So being able to stick to the USPs, what we call superpowers, not superheroes. We're the superheroes. Which are effectively sort of universal truths. They're partnered with universal pains, but if you can anchor all of your messaging from those superpowers, then you cover all bases.
Can you? I was going to dig into this a bit more, but can you talk to us about how you use that superpowers as kind of a framework for bringing all this stuff together?
Yeah, so it's a lot like that Christmas tree I was just looking at it earlier. So messaging pyramid at the top, it was established at the global level. We've got our vision, mission, purpose statements, the North Star, quite literally up there. That's coming from top down, right? And then from the bottom up, you've got your product messaging. So highly technical, linking in from the products, reams, lots and lots of it. In the middle, where those two converge, are the superpowers. As I said, we've got 6 superpowers that pair to a super pain that's true across verticals. So it doesn't matter if you're, a headcount of 50 or a headcount of 10 or a headcount of 250, 500. Those super pains and superpowers are relevant to you.
I think it's a really interesting framework because we've already talked about quite a lot of things there in terms of where you get started. It's already, you've got data, your research, understanding how your product and the market demand fit, refining that to understand who your ideal buyers are, what they're interested in. So kind of then, once you've got this huge amount of information, you need some kind of structure or framework to bring all of that together so you can actually do something useful with it. So just building on that, because I love this sort of superpower, pain framework, what other kind of frameworks and strategies have you each used in your businesses to, firstly, to bring all of that together into something tangible that you then take forwards for your positioning and messaging, but also in terms of making that relatable for the other teams in the business so that everybody's pulling in the same direction? Do you want to go first, Vanessa?
Yeah, I'll go. So I think there's a bunch of tools that we use and we need to use as marketers to get our job done, but then we've got to realize who our audience is. Like when you think, when you're a small company, your employees are your best sort of advocates, and you need to get them on the right page. So what we do is we try and leave the jargon aside. We try and give them, a concise story versus the detailed messaging breakdown. Of course, in marketing we use those, but outside of the organization we don't. So in particular with this sort of rebrand that we just did, we started with a point of view, like a really simple point of view that was created, got exec alignment across the whole point of view. Like if every exec is on board and every senior leader is on board, then they're going to help drive that message through for you. And then make sure you're just consistent with that. You don't need, for you need like a ton of different messaging, and you need a lot of level of detail. Give the right level of detail to the audience so that they can manage it. And use language that they feel comfortable with, like especially in the B2B world. I think you've got individuals that have to go out and sell for you, and they can't feel embarrassed to use the words that you're using in your marketing, right? Like you have to talk their language and make it genuine for them.
So you almost need to do your kind of internal personas to some degree of making sure that the salespeople or the dev teams or whoever else can actually communicate the same essential messages but in their own language.
Yeah, that's right, where product marketing is my best friend.
Yes.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's a really interesting meeting of minds between product and brand, I think. Leo?
Yeah, I'd love to build on Dave, basically what he just said of the bottom up and the top down. You've got your North Star, and also to build on what you've just said, you kind of have everyone working towards the same North Star. You're trying to achieve something. Also, you need focus on those buyer personas. You don't need too many buyer personas. I won't give you more than 4. I promise. But it's really whenever I go into an organization, I can give a bit of a B2C example as well. But equally, when I go into any given organization and I kind of scan it, I love product analysis. You can see that Curve and the Monzos of the world, they've all done that. They've pulled people, everyone that joins, they pull them towards the same story. Equally, everyone tells it in their own right, but it becomes such a relatable story that everyone kind of immediately connects dots and okay, this is their story. And in terms of pulling it back to B2B and how we go about that, as marketers, we can be very creative. We can fly around and flutter around and think about lovely stuff that not be as controversial to put someone who kills people on an ad, but maybe something else. Like Curve, for example, has got some billboards in London now where basically you flip the middle finger. You might have seen those. That's controversial. It might upset a few people, but it's not as upsetting to maybe the people that actually got killed by the doctor itself. So I think that's crossing the line. But in terms of the go-to-market, again, you start talking about these things and you can go in all kinds of directions. So go-to-market for us is really a tool to kind of get it all together. There's different stages that we've designed. I think they're kind of similar in any company, be it B2C or B2B. And that's how you get your bottom up. You get everyone on the same page, everyone telling the same story for the right people. And anywhere, like our summer conference, I actually had a lead for one of our products. Because you're here at a fintech marketing, you don't expect it, but there was a lead for our kind of digital banking suite. So there, you never know where you might tell the story and how it relates. And I think that's how you get all of your employers to be kind of your people to tell the same story to the same brand.
Yeah, I think sales, getting the sales team to do stuff and to sing from the same hymn sheet. So we inherited we inherit the vision, mission, purpose statements. We inherit a lot of product information from the global team. So the global product team is based in San Francisco. We're in APAC business primarily, so we get a lot of information that I would say is not localized. The way that, and then it's up to me to localize that to make it culturally relevant, make it relevant to the UK, which is a highly competitive market, same with Europe and the rest of EMEA. What I found to be really helpful in getting sales engaged is to bring them in early doors. So, and I see sales as qual research. Because if you can listen to Chorus AI, exactly, you can hear what the pain points are, what our prospects bringing to the table, and saying this is what's most painful for us. And also, if sales already engaged, you're running it like a marketing campaign. They've already been, they've had their interest peaked. So when you deliver the final messaging, they can sort of see the journey, they can see the messaging and more like to use it.
I think that's really interesting because I think there's probably a lot of nodding in internal agreement around that difficulty with getting salespeople on board with what you're doing in marketing.
Sorry.
You see now. No.
So, but it is really, really critical, and actually they are, I think, a really valuable test and learn audience as well for messaging. And just from things like listening on sales calls or understanding what sales objections they come across the most frequently can fuel a lot of your differentiators in things like content. So I completely agree. I think bringing them in early is really important. I just want to go back to what you were saying, Dave, about localizing and kind of working in different markets, because as you said, Airwallex was born in Australia and has built a stronghold in APAC, but you're a relative newcomer to this region, so you're kind of going the other way for probably a lot of the fintechs in the room. And what kind of challenges have you found with that, and how are you approaching things a bit differently for EMEA?
Our brand awareness, that's the big one. I mean, we launched in the UK nearly 2 years ago. I think this year we're starting to get traction, people starting to notice us. We had a big out-of-home campaign in June, but really that's been the main challenge is the brand awareness, but it's starting to come through. I think when you approach any new market, you need to go, it sounds like a contradiction, but it's not. You need to go deep at the bottom of the funnel, you need to go quite heavy at the top of the funnel. So you need to spend a lot on the brand, sometimes a lot, but you also need to be in at the roots of, and that's where focus comes from as well. You need to be going in deep at, industry persona community level.
Right, because I think you mentioned that your product is slightly different in your different regions, so you kind of have to cater for that within the marketing as well. It's not just, you've got that top level brand level, but you need to also kind of localise your own product.
Not necessarily. The product's universal. The product's used in the same way, because we're cross-border. It doesn't matter if you're, you can still take as many learnings from a US company if you're a UK company, because fundamentally we're cross-border. We're Airwallex, we're not attached to anything. I suppose where the localization bit is more on the pain points. It's
Tone of voice.
yeah. So
that.
for instance, a startup out of Israel, they have to be global first. They have to, especially small countries, they have to launch globally first. Whereas a US company, they can reach pretty good revenue just by doing domestic payments. Like a US online travel agent, they can be quite content for a couple of years just generating revenue in the US before they even think about expanding.
Oh, interesting.
I think I was going to say I think this is an area where suddenly the worlds are very different of brand and product marketing. Sense brand, if you've done your work and you're thinking about your aspirational customer, there are commonalities and attributes, right, where you can kind of tap into a relatively similar emotion on a global scale with very small nuances. But I think your offer and how you sell in becomes very complicated. How you tie that bridge into your superpowers is what becomes very nuanced. We're starting to think about different regulations in different countries, what you can and can't talk about. So I think it's when you double click deeper that it becomes really much more complex entering the different markets.
I can give a very concrete example. I've been working with our head of content on a piece, basically an article, and we've kind of forming it over the last kind of couple of weeks. And now we decided, okay, shall we use this for a digital campaign, so we get in our digital team as well for the US, and then literally someone in the sales team went like, no, because all of our current clients will be very upset with us if we talk about this. So it's a particular thing in the automotive financing sector. And it's like, okay, you can't talk about this in the US, so don't use this because you will upset a lot of people. We still publish it, but we focus now on EMEA basically. Yeah. Whereas we're trying to grow our client base in the US. So it's very much the tone of voice, the things you talk about. Even though it might be a topic that is relevant to them, they might not like to read about it because it might upset them in some sort of way, or it might not really address their pain points.
And the channels they expect you to be in are different as well.
Exactly, yeah.
And I would say, like, use local partners.
Exactly,
I mean,
New York-based agency.
I wrote a blog, I don't mind showing, I wrote a blog on the Middle East as a potential hub for fintech. And we gave it to our Middle Eastern PR agency, and they went, "This is way too fluffy. Like, this this is written for a UK audience. It needs to be way more direct than this.
Yeah.
And you know, there's nothing wrong with Pete's, don't get me wrong, but it's still UK.
But it's interesting. That's another level of sort of test and learn as well when it comes to the messages. That localization, unless you're in the shoes of that local market, can be hard to get it right.
And this goes back to your internal stakeholders, right? Like they understand the market really well. Start there when you don't have the resources for that big PR agency to support you. They kind of read local papers. They kind of understand what their audience is expecting.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we've got Walid Halal in the organization as well. He works for fintech in the Middle East. So if you ever want to write something by Walid, there you go.
I'm sure he'll be delighted.
He'll be delighted to get everyone, asking him
Bring it to
questions.
the table. Okay, so the last thing I wanted to just explore briefly is kind of building on this common theme of needing consistency at a brand level, but having to kind of tweak for things as they change. We're in one of the fastest changing, constantly evolving industries, or it feels like it, that there is out there at the moment. So, you know, how do you balance that? How do you make sure that you're not constantly changing, but you're still moving with the times in terms of market demand, these pain points as they're changing? What's your advice to the marketers in the room about how to tackle that?
I think if you've got those foundations, right, you talked about the pyramid, like be super clear on your vision, your mission, why you exist, what your offer is, what you want to be famous for, what you're fighting for, what you're fighting against. Like if those things you've got alignment on, you've got something a little bit objective to assess, do we go there, do we not go there, is it going to move us away? And at the end of the day, you've got to be authentic. Like when you look at the brands that have really made a mark, they were brave. I think you used the word brave before. And they decided to just stick to their guns that they really, really genuinely believe in. And then you can adapt everything. Like you respond to what's happening in the market, but you do it in a way that's very authentic to you. You don't change sort of your messaging day in, day out. Like there are some things that need to live a little bit longer for you to really get them working.
Consistency.
Yeah. There's got to be some consistency there.
Sure.
Yeah, I think you have to let your messaging breathe. I think again, it's bravery because sometimes you might not get it right. You know, you won't know until 6 months plus down the line. But you need to, put your hat on the door. It's not the expression. But you need to trust in your messaging, trust in that pyramid, and give it time. You can't change it every 3 months. It's not going to work. People won't start to recognise it. People won't, much like the people won't understand what you're going for until you've given them enough time. There's always lag. However, on top of that, the way that you keep that messaging fresh is the way that you bring it to market, it's the way you activate it. And we were literally just talking earlier, we all you all B2B, we can't have as much fun as B2C. Actually, I think we can apply a lot of B2C marketing to brand activations to keep it fresh. I think that's something that's going to happen a lot more the more that fintech matures and the more budget that's put behind the top funnel.
I think, to build on that in terms of like the brand, staying true to yourself basically and being consistent, letting your messaging breathe. I think brand experience is often overlooked. So people talk about CX, UX, all of those things, but BX is also a thing. There is a certain thing that people associate with your brand. I used to work in market research and we did like brand health assessment. So, the bigger brands do this consistently, but that's why if you see like even an inch of the McDonald's arch, you will know it's McDonald's. But obviously, we all like to be McDonald's in that sense. But sticking true to yourself over the years, that is something that really, sticking true to your brand and your brand story, maybe tweaking it along the way, but staying consistent in kind of the red lines that you have through your messaging as well as you bring products to market. So I would say, not killing go-to-markets after launch, or you just like, oh, we launched product, there it goes. Really keep it as a tactical, at the back of your mind kind of things, and keep on discussing it internally how that evolves in the market.
So, in terms of how you're thinking about the positioning and messaging for your business, what kind of term of time are we talking about here? Because I think there is a danger, and I've certainly seen fintechs make some horrible mistakes with pivoting constantly. And it just, I think it causes issues for credibility, for being able to build a memorable story, even for just basically being understood in terms of what you're offering. So, you know, what would your advice be? I'd like to hear from all of you about what should we be looking at really.
You're building trust, right? Like whether you're B2C or B2B, you're building trust in that product. And if you keep changing, we can't trust you. People can't trust you, so you've got to keep it a little bit of time. Now industry moves fast. And there's also a high investment, right? If you're doing it properly, it costs money to really do that research, take the time. We've got teams invested in rewriting the messaging houses and the pyramids. So for me, it's like at least a 5-year period. And then of course, if things are really not working, we're going to adjust some of the messaging. But in theory, your vision should be that kind of distance kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I echo that. I mean, vision, mission, purpose shouldn't be changing. If they are, then there's something fundamentally wrong.
Yeah.
Especially if you've been through that exercise of working with people internally and evaluating the market. But what about when you kind of get a bit further into the middle of that pyramid that you were talking about? You know, are those the pieces that change more frequently, or how do you see that part of it?
I guess I could answer. So I think your UX might change of the product. All of those things might get a refresh. But I think sticking through that kind of mission, vision, purpose. I always like to say brand experience, because your brand has a story. So Curve, again, the middle finger isn't just there. There's a ring, and they partner with a ring of a wearable company to do a payment, and they stick true to their one thing, is getting rid of your wallet. Aggregating all your cards in one. So it's kind of that sticking true to that kind of it's red lines, and a lot of things can happen around it, but there should be consistency there for anyone that that kind of relates to your brand in a certain way, to see, okay, this is theirs. In the sense that it might change in terms of the words that are used, the UX might change, all of those things might change, but the brand is the same. The story behind the brand is the same.
I think it's what Vanessa was saying about owning what you want to be famous for,
Yeah.
and being authentic to that. So, fantastic. I'm going to open the floor up to questions in that case. Does anybody? Yeah, Jeremy.
Hi guys. We've talked a little bit about things like brand awareness, stuff like that. What I'm interested in is, what are your go-to brand metrics?
Oh, that's a tough
I mean, I'll go. We do trackers, but they are expensive. You don't do them often, and we found lean ways of doing them. So at America's scale, it's like recognition, right? Like unaided recognition is a key determinant of awareness. But then we need those metrics that we can sort of measure ourselves against on a monthly, more regular basis. We use share of voice for that when it comes to the comms world. We use like followers and engagement ratios when it comes to social media. So you've got sort of your abilities to track whether you're going in the right way, and then we use tools that allow us to understand sentiment as well, because there's no point in being loud and rude unless your market wants it. But so we look at is it the right sentiment that we're evoking in market as well.
Yeah, so same. When we did the out of home campaign this year, we also looked at unaided awareness. We compared it to the other regions as well, all very helpful. From a content perspective, monthly traffic, inbound leads, that's kind of, it's a bit more downstream, and lots of things can happen, but you can generally, if you do a big awareness campaign, you can sort of see the lag a couple of months later, and you might get a good bump.
Yeah, I think same, and indeed, like especially the social following is quite big in our company. Like how many followers have we gained in a certain period, and then equally how engaging are those followers with us. So I think Sopra ranking has like 150k followers on LinkedIn. That's a main metric. But equally, when we have a LinkedIn Live, how many people will sign up, and then those are kind of the things that we follow. But equally, brand awareness. Obviously, there's the customer experience, there's the NPS, all of that stuff, and then matching those and seeing where we could build on our awareness in particular markets, especially the US.
I also wouldn't discount qual, people telling you that they've seen you a lot. So we get that with ads. Oh, I saw another ad. I said, Dave, did you make that? Yeah, I did. Or we saw you on the tube. They add up, and again, it helps you test sentiment as well, because hopefully it's positive.
Hopefully, yeah. And the branded search volume, right? If you look at branded search, that's great, like day-to-day kind of, and as compared to your key competition.
I think the interesting thing on this question, because I think it's probably one that we all get asked a lot, is I think understanding up front what you actually want to influence, or what you want your objectives to be, or your outcomes to be, really helps to then focus how you measure that. And for me, it's very much about a holistic picture. So joining up, the growth that you've got in your socials, your engagement on your newsletters. It can be some of those vanity metrics put together with bigger things like share of voice that paints that larger, more holistic picture. And I think that's what really shows. The other thing, and I've spent some time on this before, it's incredibly painful, but if you have a reasonably short to mid-term sales cycle, you can actually then also trace it through and see how many of those are turning into leads, into customers, but also partnerships, because the brand side isn't just about the leads, it is also about all those other stakeholders. So I think it's complex and it's going to be different in every company for sure. Thank you, it's a good question. Anybody else? Oh, yeah. Okay.
Do you have any tips for self-enablement? Because I feel like it's one of those things that's really easy to kind of get got, like you do the session, you provide the material, and then it's forgotten about until they ask for it again.
Yeah.
Is there any tips you've got in your experience just to kind of keep enabling stuff, so we have this report, we have this case study, rather than it being like a hit and miss, that they're part of their general tools they're consistently using?
Keep them involved. Keep sales involved.
You sat in the group.
He's very involved though.
I think it's a two-way street as well. They will tell you what they want, and if you deliver that quickly and promptly, then they start to pay a bit more attention. Also, the best salespeople understand the value of marketing, and they will play ball.
I think it's fair to say that a lot don't though, and I'm just thinking. But so I think it is a hard journey sometimes. I think, and particularly when they might be asking for something, you give it to them and then they don't use it, or they forget it's there and they ask again. And I've experienced that same thing. What I think you have to try and do is find out why they're not using it, or why they've asked again. Have they just forgotten, or was it not actually what they wanted? Did it not meet the requirements of what they were trying to achieve? And so trying to keep that open dialogue, it can be really painful, but it's really important to do.
Yeah, I think keeping it flowing. Highly active product marketers help. You get people that engage consistently, and if sales then is also very engaging, that helps. I think one of the things as a team, as a marketing team, we've now successfully done is getting us involved, like sales as a kickoff, a big kind of 5-day sales training. All the sales team comes together, and we've now, as product marketers, kind of said, let's get engaged with that and let's get involved in training, so they also know. Like on my side of the business, everyone kind of knows our team, but equally because it's such a big business, and it depends on the size of the organization, I'd say as well. If you're a relatively smaller organization, it's easier to engage with others, whereas if it's a bigger organization, it might be harder. But keep going at it. If you're a marketer, just keep going and just engage. And to build on Helen, exactly, just that.
You have to be made of tough stuff, I think.
So be fluid as well, and be open and flexible in the sense that they might tell you something is shit, and if it's shit, then let's work together to get it to make it better.
Also, something a very recent tip: change the way you talk about the content as well. So call it a closed, lost piece of content. This is something that they can use to go and get back in touch with an opportunity that they might have lost.
I think where I mentioned earlier about understanding what are the common sales objections that they come up against, feeding those sorts of things back into your content, particularly things like case studies, that they can actually use to help close deals. And once they've got that, once it's happened and they see the benefit, you've got them hooked, and then you're going to have a lot more success. But sometimes just breaking down that first barrier is the hardest part. I think we have a couple more questions. Sorry, one at the back first.
Yeah. Thank you so much for bringing us to your first thing. Question is, what are the key areas or elements you would consider when it comes to product launches in new markets?
What are these? Sorry, can you say that again? Because
what are the key areas or elements when it comes to marketing or strategy, whatever it is, you would consider when it comes to product launches in new market?
Good question. I think I think we haven't really launched per se in the US, but like a couple of years ago, we kind of went there, and there's always been kind of a small, base of clients there. But equally, I think in the US, what you say, if you're building from the US outwards, it's very easy to get complacent maybe, or just comfortable, given it's such a huge market. For us, going to the US, what do we do? Brand awareness is super important. However, it's getting the right kind of, what are the amplifiers? Trying to find, especially if it's a bigger market, what can I use from my, it might be messaging, it might be brand, that can be an amplifier in a certain channel. So really identifying that. Again, there might be tone of voice things that you think about in terms of your buyer personas, and kind of hitting those pain points of clients in there, and then get a channel that you can see really helps you amplify something. So it might be something as simple as, Rise by Barclays in New York as a hub. Actually, there's a lot of people that follow that. Let's go to an event there and let's talk about our, the pain points and our product. But it might be something more complex, particularly like an amplifier to get you started and get you going. I would say is the main thing.
I think that's right. It depends sort of the level of awareness you have in that market before you're launching that particular product. It might not be the first one you're launching in market. Then also, what's the product market fit? Like, are you going a bit too fast? Like, what is the right thing to focus on at that level? Are you trying to crack a few sort of early sales in order to help build momentum in market, and then you're going to do an awareness play, or are you doing a slightly different strategy depending on who you're targeting, like who your ICP is and what level of maturity your product has in that market?
Okay, I'm getting time to wrap up, so we'll just do really quick answers. Quick answers.
Just two very quickly there. One thing on the sales thing that I found really helpful in working with international sales teams is try and put it in their language. So if they've got an event they're going to, or if they're doing something they've been told by the CRO or whatever, if you can say, we've got this thing that is coming out that will help you with this particular thing that you're focused on, because they're driven by their own personal goals, typically the salespeople, because they're on commission and they're slightly more self-centered in a nice way. Then I found that really helps. If you could listen to them, to your point. But my question was slightly off key, is that are you being asked about AI by your bosses now? It's like, what are you going to do with AI next? Because there's so much about it at the moment, but actually it's a bit of a distraction from all the other things.
You said that was a quick question.
Short answer.
Is the question, what are you doing with AI? Or how do we answer that question?
Or just,
how do we answer?
Just like how are you thinking about it, not really what you're doing because it's too early, but
You've got to play with it. Like, it's amazing. We're just at the forefront of like a completely new sort of tool that can help us accelerate the work that we do, like find more automated ways to talk to our sales team in like tailored ways, like give them the assets they need within like a 1-day turnaround instead of a 2-week turnaround. Like, you just have to play with it and see how it can be complementary to what you do day to day.
Yeah, find the things that you don't like doing and get AI to do it, and spin it to your boss that it's giving you back more time to be creative or whatever.
I think in terms of marketing, it creates the opportunity for a fresh approach to something, equally using it, because I can imagine people are also concerned to some extent. So if you use that in a fresh way, again, like and being clear about the fact that it's still early days, but using it in like marketing, talking to clients, obviously they are getting asked the same questions, and salespeople, whoever. So I think going back to your bosses and saying, look, let's play around with it, and equally if we can use it in some sort of marketing, get some more budget towards your brand campaigns. There you go. Have a little robot up there as well, and why not? Sorry, short answer.
Just to give you something to go away with as well. So my partner works in the publishing industry, and I know that AI content versus human content is going to become a big battleground in terms of what Google penalises and doesn't penalise.
Okay, we can wrap it up.